No Nonsense Know-How here, and today's going to be an ultra fast-paced overview on how to replace the valve cover gaskets on a Honda Civic 1.7 liter. Consider dropping a thumbs up or subscribing if it helps, and let's dive right in. Your first step should be trying to clean this off before removing it. The less dirt you have on it before removing it, the less chance you have of getting dirt inside the engine. If you have compressed air or pressure washer, it'd be a good idea to maybe use that. And that looks a little bit better. You can actually see this has had a valve cover gasket at one point, but the guy came in today asking for this to be done, so I actually just told them up front to try and get him a valve camshaft plug, and that's where I'm pointing with my screwdriver right here, because that's a very common place for those to leak. I'll try and plug a link for that and the valve cover gasket set below. Anyway, your next step is going to be removing these flatheads. These are quarter turn screws, and you pop that cover off. Now you're going to remove 10 mil nuts from here, all four of your coils, 10 mil bolt, 10 mil bolt, and this hose clamp, and then push your valve cover breather back off of here too. Sometimes you just get a pocket screwdriver to loosen that up and you can push it back. Now unplug your coolant temp sensor, EGR, all four of the coils by squeezing in on these tabs, and then you can kind of tuck this harness back and put a bungee cord, keep it out of the way. Actually, better yet, I removed the 10 mils from that little bracket. And by the way, I'm sitting all my bolts in the plastic cover. And then you can pull this harness out and tuck it over this way, bungee cord it, and you have plenty of room now. A degreaser like Simple Green or Super Clean and a scrub brush works good to clean that off. Again, one more time, remove your dipstick, and this back one, you just pull this up, kind of tuck it out of your way, but be careful. There is a steel collar that sits inside of here, and see it's stuck on that side, but make sure you don't lose that. And yeah, now remove all four of your coil packs, pop those out, and then all five of the valve cover bolts, 10 mil. Looks to me like these grommets may be original, but if you just take a screwdriver and pull up on those, you can break the bond between the valve cover. And yeah, those don't look like they'd ever been replaced. You should always replace these when you're doing the valve cover gasket set though. And then you can pull this cover up before. There is one more 10 millimeter back here on this bracket for the AC low pressure side. And then with a little bit of finagling, it should come straight out. You can see, yes, it does have that new Felpro gasket. So that's, looks like a Felpro anyway because it's blue. So real convenient to get the old one off. Now he siliconed it into the cover, and sometimes people do that if it won't stick into the cover. If you have a factory gasket, then more than likely you're going to have to get in there with a screwdriver and break out little bits and pieces of it. It's going to take you a long time because sometimes they get brittle and turn into rocks. If you have a parts cleaner, bring this over and get it nice and clean, but to be honest, if you don't, just leave it alone. Leave everything where it is and don't mess with trying to clean this, because you're going to just loosen crud up and let it go floating around your engine. So choice is yours if you want to clean it up really good, but you're not going to be able to get behind this plate anyway because it's riveted in. So pop all four of your spark plug donut seals. They go in so that the rounded edge is facing down toward the spark plug tube. If you put them in this way like that would be wrong, and they could tear when you put them in. To get them out, you could use a screwdriver or a tool like this that's specifically designed for pulling seals. I find that if you hook it and then you apply gradual pressure, it's more likely to come out, whereas if you yank it real hard, it will tear through like that one did. So if I just go gradual pressure, then it will pop out. Because biggest thing is when you're doing this, you want to watch whether you're using a screwdriver or this, that you do not gouge the aluminum on the cover on the back. So make sure you're not like hammering it in there and then dragging up, because you'll score that and then end up with a leak. When you're cleaning this up, you'll also want to get any corrosion or bits of rubber off of where the bolt grommets go. And I wiped all the loose stuff out of here and kind of just gave it a good wipe down. But in particular, you do want to get in this groove and get any of the bits of old silicone or gasket out of there. Make sure that's tidy and clean, and then actually use a degreaser or acetone before you go sticking the new gasket on here, so it sticks in there. If you leave oil residue, the new gasket's going to want to slide out. Same thing on the engine side. Come in here and get all the old bits of valve cover gasket and clean all the oil off it. Wouldn't be a bad idea to check your valve adjustment at this time also. Got the new set. You can see I put a new catapult in between too, and unfortunately it didn't come with this plug. I feel like they should, but in a nutshell, to replace this, you take your EGR valve off those two 12mm nuts, holding it on. Should get an EGR valve gasket too, but usually you can reuse those, and then with a flat blade screwdriver, push in and pull that out, and hopefully it doesn't break or snap off. They do sell two types: the factory style that you can snap in from the outside, and another style that you would actually have to remove this bridge, and you don't want that style. Usually I put these in dry, but you could put a touch of silicone around them. So what you do, also put some cardboard underneath this before you go hammering on it. Flip this around so you can see a little bit better. But drop it in there nice and straight. You could tap it in with a mallet or use a seal driver, and then just give that a good whack down. Make sure it's seated uniform all the way around. Same for all four, and then take some light motor oil or grease and rub it on this seal so it slides on nice and smooth when we put the cover on. And with this groove cleaned out and dry, drop your new gasket into place, taking note that the dipstick hole has to go right here. Once it's all pushed in, I like to flip it upside down and shake it and then recheck it. If it's not popping out anywhere, then you won't have to use any silicone dabs to hold it in place. The key is to having that clean and dry, the groove. To replace the bolt seals, dab some grease on all the seals, and then take a pair of diagonal cutters and cut this, of course after pushing the washer above. And you grab that, pull it off, get this off. Get a 3/4 inch socket or something similar. Place it. You want to make sure it's wide enough, and then give it a tap, and that's it. Do that on all 5 of those. Pocket screwdriver works good to separate the rubber from the washer. Before dropping the cover on, take a tiny dab of RTV silicone on each of these corners on both sides of the bridges. I like using Right Stuff silicone, but you only need the tiniest little dab like that. If you go splooging it all out there, it's going to squeeze out and go in the engine. No need for that. When you're sliding the cover on, make sure that gasket doesn't fall off and that you don't hook it on the rockers or pinch anything in between the cover. It should go down nice and smoothly. Start all of your 5 bolts by hand threading them in, and then also come in your spark plug tubes and push the gasket into place. You see this one's not into place yet, so you have to actually push the cover over, wiggle it, and now it's seated over top of that spark plug tube, because otherwise if you just tighten it down, you'll pinch and cut that. Torque on these is 83 inch-pounds or 7 foot-pounds, and make sure when you're torquing these to use a sequence. You go a little bit on each of them, crisscross pattern, till the cover's fully seated. Don't just go tightening one down, because you could crack the cover. So I've seen people break these, so make sure to use a torque wrench if you're not familiar with torquing. Otherwise you're going to break them or end up splitting the threads, like you can see somebody it happened over here on this bracket. I just noticed that now, but yeah, still usable threads for now, I suppose. And assembly is going to be the verse of removal. I know people don't like to hear that, but this is an overview video. My only tip is make sure that you triple check this gasket's in place before tightening it, and that nothing is pinched in between. Otherwise you could crack the valve cover too. And yeah, rewind the video if you want to see how things looked before taking them apart. Drop it a thumbs up. Consider subscribing or checking the links down below to purchase anything I used in the video. To zip all the bolts off, I mainly used my Milwaukee M12 ratchet. Love this thing. It's a wise investment if you're working on cars all the time. And yeah, this has been No Nonsense Know-How. Hope it didn't go too quick. Thanks a lot. I'll see you again. That's what your final product should look like. And anybody see what I did wrong? Somehow I had a brain fart and I forgot to put one of the new washers on one of the bolts. So I'm gonna switch that over now. And then you drop your 1/4 turn screw cover back on, secure it, and you're done.